All right, let's get started. So my name is Aslen Claymore, and for the last 3 years, I've been working on what I consider to be one of the biggest problems of mankind. It sounds a bit hyperbolic, but there's a person who I really admire and respect called Jordan Peterson, who once says that you should try and bear the biggest burden that you can. And if you're an entrepreneur, that means trying to tackle the biggest problem that you can identify. So 3 years ago, I started working on something that evolved into this project that's now called Themisia. Now, when I was thinking about what to talk about, when I was invited to talk at this conference, my first reaction is, I'll talk about Themisia. I'll talk about all the features and all the things we're doing and get all technical. But I thought it'd be better to talk about something that everybody will, everyone is affected by. So you don't have to be like a tech nerd interested in geeky solutions, you know, that might come out of Silicon Valley. I'm from London, not Silicon Valley, but, and that topic is truth. Now, truth is, I believe, one of the most important things that affects everybody's life. Many philosophers have argued over what the highest virtues are, what's the most important virtues, and the one that usually comes out on top is justice. And I've never heard an argument that that argues how anything is more important than justice. And many philosophers have even, have delved into what is justice. And Plato was a big proponent of exploring justice. Well, I believe that justice is only possible in whatever manifestations people decide that is in any particular culture or civilization. Justice is only possible to the degree that the actors in that group, in that society that are seeking justice, only to the degree that those actors have access to truth. To the degree that those actors have access to truth, is the degree to which the consensus on that justice is what the philosophers would say, it's good. And I believe that injustice is only possible to the degree that there is a manipulation of that truth. There's a bastardization of that truth. So in the quest for a more just world, we need more truth. And we need to know that that the truth, I'm going to do like in quotes, that the truth that we're told, or the truth that we believe to be true, we need to know that it's true. So how do we do that? Well, I think you can divide truth into two categories. Now, this isn't any kind of technical or sort of philosophical terms. I sort of just made it up, but it's just a way to categorize these things. One I call hard truth, and the other I call soft truth. Now, hard truth, you can imagine back in the days when we lived in tribes that were no bigger than a few hundred people, and we knew everybody by face and by name. We knew the reputation of every single individual. Truth was hard, meaning it was direct. We could feel it with our hands. We could see it with our eyes. We could touch it. What we knew to be true was very close at hand. And it was incredibly important back then when it was life and death. It was crucially important that we lived according to truth, because if we lived according to lies, we run out of food, we die, we get destroyed by a neighboring tribe. Our tribe collapses. Now, we live in an age of soft truth. We can't touch it with our hands anymore. What we know to be true isn't from our own direct personal experience. what we know to be true is from secondhand experience, third-hand experience. It's from a chain of he said, she said, until we arrive at what we believe to be true. It's actually very, very, very difficult. In fact, it's impossible to build our realities with hard truths. We have some hard truths. Obviously, we have our own direct experiences, but where in the past we existed in very localized, small worlds where the only truth that we knew and needed to know was our direct, immediate truth in our surrounding area. The tribes of North America didn't need to know what was going on in Australia, had no idea what was going on in Indonesia, didn't need to know. But we live in a global, deeply connected world now where you're bombarded from every corner with what's going on in the whole world. We attempt to try and know what's going on everywhere. And the only way that we're able to attempt that is with soft truth, is that truth has traveled a long journey to get to where we are, sitting in our living rooms or on our iPhones. Now, that poses a huge problem in this modern world. Where with direct truth, there's two things. First, it's far more difficult for a lie to propagate into the future in a small world with full of hard truth, because it gets picked up pretty quick. And if it doesn't get picked up pretty quick, the ramifications of that lie, of that falsehood, it becomes apparent pretty quickly when people can't eat and people get killed and all that kind of stuff. In the modern digital world, falsehood can travel far and wide, and the ramifications of that falsehood, the negative impact of that falsehood, usually has absolutely no effect, no immediate effect anyway, on the person or the people or the group who propagate that falsehood. In fact, in most situations, it's only profit. You benefit from that in many particular ways. And I'll go into that if I've got time. But essentially, things like fake news and all kinds of stuff that people are worried about nowadays. So not only is there not a direct punishment by our reality by propagating falsehood, we're rewarded. And that's the danger of a world full of soft truth, where that's made, first of all, made possible, and second of all, incentivized by the sort of the incentive architecture. It's a problem. It's a big problem. And how are we attempting to solve this problem? One way we're attempting to solve this problem is different sources of information, of truth, fighting each other for domination. To give you an example, in 1983, there were approximately 50 corporations that owned the biggest media corporations in America. In 1996, there was what's it called? It was called I think it's called the Telecommunications Act of 1996, which was essentially it happened because of the crazy lobbying that was going on from the media giants at the time. And what that did is it relaxed the laws that that prevented or inhibited the ability for corporations in the media to conglomerate and to own, for that. They wanted to prevent essentially all conglomerating into one big power. But when the act was made into law, a lot of those restrictions were removed. And as of this year, there's 6 corporations that own the biggest media organizations. 6. Now those 6 shift and change. For example, the 6 in 2012, the 6 used to be, I've written down a whole bunch here. So the 6 in 2012 was Comcast, News Corp, Disney, Viacom, and Time Warner. And now when we see this happening, you've got, Apple, Amazon, AT&T, Comcast is still there, Disney is still there, and Netflix. And these big, huge corporations are the ones that are buying up the smaller news organizations. And they're, in corporate capitalist America, it's dog eat dog, and they're all competing for each other. Fine, that's one solution, but where's that going to lead? Are we going to have just one that wins? Are we going to live under the glorious realm of Amazon? All hail Jeff Bezos, and we'll be whatever he says goes, and he's the one that's going to rule everything. Is that the end result? Is that what we're moving towards? Okay, I personally don't think that's the best solution. Now, there's other strategies people are trying to employ to try and control, stop falsehood, to try and create truth, and that's with curation. And most of our news is curated through the digital realms that we spend our time on, the social media platforms, and we're viewing reality more and more now through these strange portals, these apertures into a shared digital realm. This is an old iPhone; it's not brand new, so forgive me for not being on the cutting edge. But this is a window into a virtual space that 20 years ago didn't exist. And if this didn't exist 20 years ago, and this is we're accessing a digital shared space through this portal, what's this portal going to look like in another 20 years, in 10 years? What's it going to look like? Will it be something like this? Will we have contact lenses where we can just instantly share a virtual space, a virtual reality? Well, here's the problem. That portal, that lens, is owned by a corporation. And where in the past we may have only had to worry about competing publishers of information, which they're like the gatekeepers of truth in some regards, but they're the kind of truth that they want to push is the truth that's in line with their particular goals, their values. And you could argue that in a competitive world, if you've got lots of competing media organizations, that's great, because then you have all these different values that are competing. And if you want to find the truth, you have access to all these different sources. That's good. But the conglomeration happens. 50 corporations turns into 40, into 30, 20, into 10, into 6 now. Then what if in the future there's 3, and then 2, there's 1? What if Apple owns the lens that you view reality through? They'll have the power to shape that reality, to nudge something over here, to move something over there, to disallow you to see that, to push certain things. Now, you might trust your Apple overlords. You might trust your king. But something I always think about is it's like, beware the thrones that you create, because that throne might be, it might house somebody in the future that you don't want to be on that throne. Like the throne you might trust Apple, you might trust Jeff Bezos. That's a king that you think, I trust what they do. But what about the next one and the next king? And the seats of power that any society has, it constructs, there's the seat of power. Those that seek power will seek that throne. They'll compete for that throne. They'll fight for that throne. In the past, that throne was a throne. It's the monarchy. So they would compete. They would fight and war to get on that throne. In a more democratic society, that seat is in, let's say, the Oval Office. And my argument now is that seat is more and more. That seat is in media boardrooms. Now, if you place that seat on, let's say, the people who decide how this lens is going to be shaped and manipulated and changed within some kind of a corporate structure, then people who seek power will seek that seat. And you might trust the people within Apple, let's say, I'm using Apple as just an example. You might trust them now, but you have to have imagine there's like a time dial. if you just wind that forward, what could the world look like for your kids, for your grandkids? What if that seat of power that you're happy existing now is what if someone that you do not want on that throne, making decisions about the kinds of things that are pushed and shaped and the way the reality is formed? And I think this is a good analogy, the portal, the lens. And I'm using this as the future example of a portal that you're going to see into this virtual space. But even now, our social media platforms are portals, and they act as the lenses that shape the world that we see, and in a very abstract way. The news that we watch, that again are owned by these 6 corporations and a handful of billionaires decide what happens here. They're the shapers of our lenses. And the reason why this is so important is I think there's 2 kinds of people in the world. There's the kind of person who knows they're right. They're convinced that they're right. Why is it true? Because you know it's true. You know it's true. If somebody has a different opinion that is different to yours, they're wrong, obviously, and there's no point in even listening to them because they're wrong. Then there's the kind of person who knows that he could be wrong. And the difference is a slight shift. And you might have 2 people which are incredibly convinced that what they believe to be is true. But the slight shift is one person knows that he's right. The other person is really, really sure he's right, but he knows that he could be wrong. And those type of people, it's a small shift, but the way that expresses itself in a person's interactions, and then you extrapolate that to the way that the society operates. If you have a society full of people who know they're right, that leads to violence, because you have 2 sides who believe they're right but aren't aware that they could be wrong, equals violence, because the only solution to that is violence, because that person who's wrong, the only way to stop them is through violence. Now, that's not a world that I think is very productive, and history is replete with countless examples of what happens, what that leads to. It's not good. So I think one of the most important things about education is to teach people that they could be wrong. And this is something that Socrates talked about when he went on a quest to try and find the wisest person in the world. And after meeting the most clever, the most knowledgeable people in the world, he concluded that he was the wisest person in the world because he was the only person who knew that he knew nothing. That's an exaggeration, but it means he knew that he could be wrong. He was aware of how limited and small he was in comparison to all possible knowledge. So wisdom is the thing that we should all seek. And the first step to that wisdom, I think, is understanding that you could be wrong. And the things that you currently believe to be true have been curated and in some ways manipulated. I'm not saying everything you believe is wrong, that's obviously silly, but understanding that what you currently believe to be true, to some large degree, because we're nested within this information architecture that is guided and shaped by these powerful forces. And this isn't like conspiracy stuff. This is just very practical. I'm just explaining this is the world we live in. And if we're not aware of that, we will be pawns in a big game we're not even aware of. So I've been going for 20 minutes. I'll wrap up and bring this home to what I'm working on, and then I'll take some questions. So it's hard to cram a lot in just 20 minutes. So I've just spent all this time talking about the problem, and essentially I think you can summarize the problem with truth thus. If truth is centralized, or if the sourcing and distribution and publishing of truth is centralized, then the laws of nature dictate that that centralization will get ever more centralized until you've got a single point of origin. And all centers of power, if we look at history, I think everyone will agree on this, all centers of power, all hierarchies of power and control tend towards corruption. It's human nature. Power wants more power, tends towards corruption and tyranny. So we've been on an epic journey as human beings to create government architectures that protects against that. And for all the negatives that exist within the American system, that was the most recent attempt at creating a society with checks and balances to prevent that corruption of centralized power. But we see this happening with truth and in the media, this centralization, and there's no counterbalance to that. And the most important civic institution in the world that has the power and the civic duty to protect us against global tyranny is the press, is a free press, is what they call the fourth estate. And it's in danger of heading down that route of centralization. So the solution is decentralization. Well, how do you decentralize truth? You build a rival digital architecture, a digital ecosystem where every participant in the ecosystem is incentivized by the way the system is designed to voluntarily tell the truth. That sounds very abstract, and some might think that sounds impossible. That's exactly what I've been working on for 3 years. And that's what Themisia is. Themisia is essentially it's a publishing platform where truth can be published, like in articles and things like that. But the back end is it's a truth economy where every fact, every question, every module of reason is commodified, and everybody who contributes to truth can profit from it financially, with reputation, all these different things. Now I could talk for hours about what I'm working on, but I had to squeeze this into a very, very short talk. Any questions about what I just talked about and about the Themisia project, knowing that I haven't got much time to talk about it? So any questions? I'm going to put my headphones on so I can hear you better. Any questions, anybody? No? Have I got to do anything? Have I got to like put anyone's hand up?
Hi, Aslen. It's George. Hi, Julie.
Hi, George.
Yeah, I'm only being friendly because of the wonderful effort you put in. It's hard to have questions when you don't know much about the specialist topic that you have. Apart from that, I have it resonates with me. It connects with me, and therefore I'm adopting that as my mission. And I'm going to amplify that message in my local community, which is Tasmania, in Hobart, on the other side of the planet. So I'm very pleased with that. So maybe Julie wants to say something now that she knows the bar set so low.
No, that's great. Well, because essentially what you've just told me, and the reason why that resonates is because you clearly value justice. I think like most people value justice, but I think more than that, you value truth. And what I'm talking about resonates to you because you want to know the truth. You want to live truth. You want your life, your actions, and your beliefs to be in line with the truth, in perfect harmony with the truth. And I think that's why that resonates. So the reason...
The ugly reason?
Sorry?
The ugly reason why I love truth is because I'm lazy, and the truth is easy.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I don't have to remember my life.
the reason why the project is called Themisia, it's named after the Greek goddess Themis, which is the goddess of justice, among other things. So
Yes,
Themisia could be translated to the land of justice, and what basically that means is you might be a Themisian, sir. I'm a
I
Themisian,
am.
I invite you and anyone listening to join and become a Themisian. So go to themisia.org and just check it out and follow the journey that I'm on, that we're all
I
on.
am. I'm there now.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions?
Yeah.
I've got 3 more
I
minutes.
have a comment, I guess. I'm Yael.
Hi.
So I'm actually watching this show right now called The Good Place. You know it?
No.
You know the show? You don't know the show?
I don't watch TV. I'm too busy.
Okay. Well, it's a whole thing about ethics and like all these theories, you know, like Aristotle and and just exploring in a fun and innovative way how to do this. So I think actually it's really worth watching because they're basically quoting all of these things. And one of the things that I guess from what I gathered is in Aristotle, you in order to understand what truth is, you kind of have to identify what a falsehood is. And because people are and in different religions, even, in some situations, it is permissible to embellish the truth or to lie without consequences that we face, and when we don't say the truth. Like they're like the whole definition, I think, changes, and so I think if we look at a different lens, right? So through which lens do you need to be looking at these things to really evaluate the reality? Is the question.
Was that an abstract question, or for me to specifically answer? I
don't know if you have actually the time to answer, I guess, but I'll check you out. I saw you have a book. So
that book is I used to be a dating coach many years ago, so that book has nothing to do with what I'm working on now. That book's about masculine psychology, essentially. So
okay. You know what? I actually give a lot of examples from all kinds of dating artists and stuff like that when I do lectures. Cool. Which is fun on pitching and things like that. So it actually will be interesting.
Well, to answer your question, I think that you have to first understand that it's actually impossible to step outside of your own lens. It's your lens. It's okay. You can attempt, you can try and build a model of what another person's lens might be, but that model exists within your lens. Okay. It's inescapable to some degree. Well, it is inescapable because your seat of consciousness is inside here. Now, the best thing you can do, I believe, is to attempt as far as you can to model other people's lenses, but it's still going to be within your lens. But I think that's the best you can do. So what's good about a decentralized system of truth is well, I haven't got time to go into how it works, but you've got these individual nodes which are contributing to the network. They're contributing their own perspectives into the network, and the network itself is it's code. It's not like a king or a judge deciding which node is correct. It's all coming together into a impartial coded system that that, if it works, which I believe it does, the way it's designed, produces the objective truth to the degree that that's possible to determine.
Yeah, if there is objective truth, that's what I am debating with myself, if there is such a concept. But it's interesting, definitely interesting to explore.
Yeah, well, my time's up. So thanks for listening, guys. I've just crammed a load of stuff in that short time. So I'm going to sign off. So thanks for listening, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.
Thank you.